Hello and welcome to another episode of Casting Views, the podcast that takes a topic each week and, as the name suggests, cast views. This week I've got James from Seismic Cinema on the show to talk about a subject that, well, when I mentioned it, you kind of jumped at it, didn't you, James?
I did, yes. I was very eager to come on.
And it's a subject that I've touched upon before, or subjects, I should say, that I've touched upon before, but it's always a great one to have another little conversation and bring some other things in. But before we get on to that, yeah, do you just want to tell us how Seismic Cinema's getting on and what's been going on for you guys?
Yeah, I'll try my best. So, Seismic Cinema is a film and TV review podcast. There's three of us that are on it generally. It's a kind of running joke that, Colin's never seen the film, Paul has watched it in the wrong order, and I've written an essay on it, which kind of comes from the days when I was younger and I went and did a kind of media course, no film school as such, but you watch films and you wrote essays on it. So that kind of took my interest back in the day, and since my guest appearance on Seismic Cinema a good few years back now, I think they must have liked what I had to say, and they've kept me on full time, which is nice of them. But yeah, we're just a movie podcast and we review kind of random films. We put things out on Twitter for the people to vote, and based on the vote, the winner will review that film. So yeah, it's going pretty well, man.
Yeah, and you cover quite a different variety of films as well, don't you? It's always
Aye,
a lucky dip kind of thing of films.
yeah, we try cover most bases. Colin's a very kind of avid Star Wars fan. So is Paul. To be fair, I'm not as much, but I mean, we try to tap into a variety of different kind of film genres to try and engage the audience and whatever. We've done a lot of dystopian things in the past, touched on kind of like I think Colin in the past done kind of rom coms and things. That was before my time, right enough, but action films. So we just try to kind of dip our toes into different things.
Yeah, if you're not already, do go check them out. Go subscribe to Seismic Cinema. You're pretty much everywhere, right? Aren't you?
Yeah, you can find this on pretty much anywhere. So it's like Twitter. I say that I can't even think now. Instagram, Facebook, the page, the community page. We're also on YouTube and Spotify. So give us a wee like and a follow, a subscribe as well. I think we're sitting at 174 subscribers or something like that. So we could do with many more, and you'd hear the dulcet tones of myself, Colin, and Paul.
You may even hear my voice on one of the earlier episodes or an episode a
That's right.
little
Yeah,
while back.
absolutely. You came on to the Karate Kid episode
I did,
with
yeah.
Colin. I had a migraine. I remember that one because I was desperate to go into it, and I had a migraine. And when I get a migraine, I can't do anything at all. So I was in my bed pretty early that day, that night even, and I listened back to the episode. It was a really good episode. Just gutted that I missed it.
Well, maybe you should, if you do Cobra Kai, maybe we should.
Possibly, actually. I know I've not seen the new season. I know they do what they usually do nowadays, don't they? They kind of do the last
Split
season,
it in two.
half it, and then split it, and
Yeah.
then yeah. So I've not seen the new season. I know Colin likes it as well, so we can definitely get you on for that.
Yeah, I've just finished it. So yeah, I'd definitely put my hat in the ring for that. So yeah, Seismic Cinema, go check them out. As I said, go follow them. And James, I normally break away for an advert here. So do you know what? We'll just play the trailer for Seismic Cinema.
We're Seismic Cinema. I'm Colin. I've probably not seen it. Paul's watched it in the wrong order.
And I'm James, and I've probably written an essay on it. And that's Seismic Cinema. We believe in the power of escapism.
Oh, thank God for that. That'll do.
Right, we are back. So the subject of this week's episode is cryptids and conspiracies. So I've done an episode on cryptids before, did an episode on conspiracies, but it feels like every day that goes past, there's always more and more conspiracies anyway. So it feels like a subject you can never run out of. When I put this in the Podpack group, so hi Podpack, by the way, you kind of said you wanted to be on it because there was something specifically you wanted to talk about. So yeah, do you want to introduce what you were going to talk about?
Right, so when you put this out, I was very keen because I was watching the programme anyway at the time, and I thought I was watching this programme. I've really big interest in it. I thought I can try and spread the word here and try and convince people that my topic for this podcast, this episode, would be on Bigfoot and the existence, or do you think does Bigfoot exist? Look at possible evidence again. it's just something that really fascinated me from when I was younger. I remember when I was younger, my dad would take me to the library, and I would just see no conspiracy theories as such, but just things on Bigfoot in a section in the library. I got the book, took it home. I read encyclopedia about Bigfoot as well, along with the library books of crop circles. So I've I should be sitting here with a tinfoil hat on, to be honest with you, but it's not that bad. And I say that, and I'm going. People will be listening to me just now and going, "This guy's absolutely crazy." But I do have a firm belief that there is something out there. But we can discuss that further on. But it's just it's been a topic that I thought, you know what, I really want to talk about it. I've been watching the shows on TV that's came back out, and I just thought, instead of me just kind of talking to myself about it and trying to convince other people that would actually try and listen to me, that I can try and put it to a broader audience and do it that way.
It's interesting because when I discussed, oh god, this was in maybe a couple of years ago now, Cryptids, I had Justin from the Movie Wire on, and he's from the Seattle area. So he brought up Bigfoot because that area is kind of well known for it or sightings. But yeah, from my perspective, I was going to say, when you brought this up, that I remember as a kid, it felt like quite a common story in the papers and in the news, and often when it's on there, it's done in a bit of a jokey way as well. You know, it's often a tabloid headline, or it's done as a bit of sort of tongue in cheek. I'm quite interested because, you know, obviously you're a bit younger, so it's interesting that it's, I was going to say, still a thing. I mean, you see the odd stories now, but was it that it just grabbed your attention or your imagination as a kid?
It was that. It was just the thought of something that, it's not, like an ape, a gorilla, or a human that's roaming the earth. And there's been several kind of sightings of it by different people. They've got their own stories, and different, like the Native Americans have got their own stories as well, and just people seen sightings in Seattle, Washington, the state of Washington, that you get Oregon, and different types of things like that. You can see there's similarities in terms of what they see, but still different at the same time. There's always a different kind of eyewitness account. I always think to myself, surely not everybody can be wrong. There must be something out there. It's a belief of mine. I think there is, but again, I always think to myself, I'm in a science myself, right? But I do want to have and hold on to the belief that there is something else that exists. And well, evolution would tell us that. I'm off on a tangent here. That if we came from the apes and things, what's not to say that that something else went the other way and just didn't evolve as advanced as us.
I guess people would say, and people listening, if it exists, why is it not more commonly cited? I guess. Why is it just odd person here or there? How would you explain that, or what would you say to that?
That's a good point. I mean, if it was a frequent occurrence, then you would think, okay, if it does exist, then there would be more. And I get this all the time. By the way, I need to put a disclaimer out here that I am no Bigfoot expert. I am no, I am just a believer. And from what I read and from the programs I watch, why don't we see the remains of a Bigfoot? That's scientific proof there that the bones, and we don't ever see them. But through the research and things that through what I've witnessed, well, what I've watched, is that Bigfoot, even though they might not be as advanced as us in terms of what we can do, but they're still quite intelligent beings, and they can. And when we enter their domain of the forests in Northern California and America and whatever, do you know what I mean? We're in their domain. They're the kings of their domain, and we're entering them. So they know the forests is better than anyone, and they can evade, and they can basically take the power away from us, really.
And again, I don't really know too much other than kind of some looking at some facts and figures for preparation for this. I only know it as being kind of sighted in, as you said, the West Coast, the northwest of America. Is it limited to there, or is it around the world? Are there other places? Yeah, I don't know.
I think the footage that we've seen It's like, so Northern California, we've got Washington, Oregon, and there's been sightings in Alaska as well. And then through the other side of it, there's the Yeti. It's been sighted. And I don't really have much information on that, but the Yeti is like the Himalayas. I'm sure you've heard that the stories that come with that. It's like the abominable snowman type thing. It's not as if it's just purely America. There is other sightings across the world that just they live in such remote areas.
So are there like some famous sightings? Is there, has there been things that have caught the attention more than others? Like I kind of compare it to back home, well, especially from around your neck of the woods as well, like Nessie. There are some pictures that seem to take the imagination of the public more than others.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most famous footage was the Patterson Gimlin film, which was taken in 1967. And I'm sure you've seen the footage on YouTube or even as a on TV in some show, whatever. Do you know what I mean? That was taken in California. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So that's the most kind of the famous footage where they basically a bunch of guys on horseback that could see an ape-like creature going across the land, and they could see it turn, and they could see the size of it and things, and it was such vast, and it was just moving at such a pace. Like the stride of this was nothing like a human. It was going fast, and I've watched it back a few times. For that to be the only kind of sighting of it since 1967 is bizarre. I understand that because it should be, if people have seen that footage and they're all crowding towards the in California to where they are, then surely you see more. But that's just them being game masters of where they live. They know how to evade. They know how to use the forests to basically get away from the humans. I say humans if
Yeah.
I'm not a human. No, I'm a human. You know what I mean? So so that was taken in California. But I know like the time like it's tried to be debunked a few times. It's like why don't we know it's a man in a suit? The guy I can't remember if it was Patterson or Gimlin now, but one of them was an actual producer who made films and things. So it lends itself to the fact that okay, that he just made this up. But I'm sure Gimlin, I think he's still alive at this moment in time. He still swears to this day that it is real, and what he's seen was the actual Bigfoot.
What I'd say is we kind of make discoveries on a regular basis, right? And we find rare things or we find undiscovered things all the time. So who's to say that there won't be evidence of something? So I'm not necessarily saying of Bigfoot, but something getting close to that. I mean, what I would say is, especially for those of us here in Britain and I guess in Europe, is we kind of forget how vast America is, right?
Aye.
We're not talking about spotting something in your local nature reserve here in England, which you could probably sort of cycle through in half an hour. I mean, I was fortunate enough last year. I visited Seattle and we did the redwood forests as we were going down to California. And the size of those trees, the vastness of those forests, I think you can't underestimate how big it is and how easy, so for you or I to get lost in there, right? So who's to say what you could or couldn't find there?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, how many times do we hear that in the ocean there's umpteen things we've not discovered yet because
Mm,
the ocean itself is so vast. You know what I mean? In America itself is a huge country. And a lot of the Northern California and the forest that you're talking about, they go, without people entering them
mm.
because, and I've read as well and seen that the program that I'm talking about, by the way, that I've watched recently is called Expedition Bigfoot, and there's 6 seasons of it now, and they go into different states in America and they find evidence here and there. But even themselves, they go into these terrains never been entered before, and people have been lost before, and they couldn't find their way out, and they've ended up passing away and whatever. But because it is so big, no one's going to go in looking for things if there's no way out. And plus, there will be things out there that we haven't discovered yet. On the show Expedition Bigfoot, there's a scientist on it. His name escapes me, but she's a primatologist, And so in these, forests, America is, loads and loads of bears. They've got loads of deer, they've got loads of bears, there's elk, there's coyotes, there's loads of wolves as well out there in the wild. And she's been brought along to, to establish, like, pick up DNA and to try and match it with, like animals already in the database that
Mm.
exist. So in these forests that they go in, they find footprints, and they're not human footprints either. So they use good technology in terms of, casting it and then taking it back to what they call the command center, and they analyze it as you would as a scientist. You would analyze it, and you're talking, it's so much bigger than a human foot. And as well as that, they've found like hair strands, and they've used the DNA analysis for using the hair strands to compare it to the likes of, animals that exist just now, and extinct animals as well. And they've sent it to labs, and it's came back that it's not an animal hair. It's not an animal hair. So it's like this TV show has used loads of technology. So I'm just going to go, if I just get my wee notes here. I want to believe in it, right? I do, but at the same time, we've got to go through the scientific route as well. I'm not a biologist in any sense, right? I don't know anything, but they use mitochondrial DNA, and so they use all those kind of high tech labs, and the hair that they find, they compare it to the animals and different species that exist in the whole world, and they look for something called the medulla. I could be saying that wrong. And medullas, in the DNA hair strands exist in animals and other species, but in humans they don't. And then the hair that they find, that medulla is not present in the hair strands. The hair strands that they find, it's not like knee high, it's like 8 foot in the trees. So what can brush past trees and things like that at that height and leave like DNA? Because that's bigger than a human.
That's what I was going to ask. Is there an accepted height for how tall a Bigfoot would be?
I think they're talking between 7 and 8 foot. And see the Patterson Gimlin footage that I was talking about, the one that was taken in California, like the most famous one. They've analysed that, and they've like taken it from the ground to high up and the gate and all that. And the researchers, the experts, say that that was actually a female Bigfoot. It wasn't a male Bigfoot. So there is the element of reproduction there as well. So whether the height's between 7 and 8 foot, I think this the smallest they've said is between 6.5 foot to 7 foot to a grown male would be 8 foot.
Because the only reason I ask again, and obviously, 7 foot is big, right? Is tall. But I guess if I'm trying to put the hat on from people that have seen it, the trees in those forests are far, far taller than that. So, I guess what I'm trying to say, you're not expecting to see like a dinosaur that's roaming sort of its head above the tree. Do you see what I'm saying? That in relation to the forest or the area it's in, it's still going to be quite small in comparison. So you're not going to just see them. People are saying, "Why, you'd see it all the time." Well, no, because the area it's in is still going to conceal it, right?
No, that's true. But they went back to the area like when everything's all when that footage was taken. They went back to the exact same area, and they've used the footage, and they've marked the tree heights and things like that to where like points in the film to the existence of the tree at this moment in time, and they can mark it, and they're taking heights from that. So I mean, it's not perfect, but it is a rough estimate of how high and how tall that the Bigfoot can be just by looking at the footage and then
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the current state of that moment in time. And that's another thing because that footage with the parts and Gimlin, why they thought it was a man in a suit and all that sort of thing. Well, if they measured it and there was no man that tall, that you know what I mean. I don't think there was a man in about that point in time that it was that tall. Do you know what I mean? So it nailed it down to a female as well, which I found interesting. I remember like Bigfoot was always a male. It was always you get the TV shows like Harry and the Hendersons and all that.
Yeah,
Bigfoot the
yeah,
Hendersons. It was always
yeah.
kind of portrayed as as a male Bigfoot. But when I first read it and seen it that it was this is going to be a female. That's just there's more of them living out there. You know what I mean? Like potentially. I'm not saying there is, but potentially there are more than living out there, you know.
And have you done, or would you ever consider going? Because you can get like these Bigfoot trails, can't you, that you can go to do or follow or sighting tours. Would you ever do, or have you done anything like that?
No, I've not. I would love to do it, man. Do you know what I mean? It's just, but to be fair, like, even though I'd love to go and like do these things, right? I'm not a big fan of snakes, right? And there's snakes about there, and you have to remember as well, like on these shows, and I don't know about the Bigfoot trails. I imagine there would be, but there'd be like armed guards because there's bears out there. Do you know what I mean? And I don't fancy coming, face to face with a bear. I don't know. The thought of it excites me. I'd like to go and see that for myself. Do you know what I mean? And just experience the vastness of what's out there, and just think about trying Bigfoot's out here somewhere. But I imagine it could cost quite a lot of money to do that as well.
And it's interesting because I was looking, as I said, I've got some notes, and the thing is, it's something that stretches back to, I think I found that the first sighting was in 1811. So we're talking, what, 200 years?
uh,
Just over that, aren't we? That we're
yeah,
seeing sightings. Yeah, it was in 1811, a British explorer discovered footprints. 1846, another footprint discovered in Arkansas, I think it is. 1884, a gorilla-type creature seen in Canada. 1924, 1958, 1967, 1971, and that's kind of where I stopped. But it's just showing that, every decade you're getting these sightings. I think for me, it kind of really became interesting when they kind of featured it in Grand Theft Auto, wasn't it? Was it in 5? Or it was fabled to be in one of the Grand Theft Auto games?
I hate to break it to you, mate, but I've not played Grand Theft Auto since it was the bird's eye view.
I'd have took that wow.
You're talking to the wrong person there, but nah, I didn't see it. No.
But I remember them being a thing. It was almost as rare to see it in that as they were saying in real life. I also found what people could explain it away as, and so I was going to throw these at you and just to see what you think about them. So I think one you've already mentioned. So one of the things is supposedly bears. So scientists think that there's the population of American black bears could be mistaken from it from afar, especially as they can often walk upright if they're injured. So that feels like an easy one to say, oh yeah, it must be that.
Yeah, and they do talk about, so seeing the show that I'm talking about, and they hunt at night. These people who are looking for Bigfoot are out at night as well, when they use, high technology. They use the kind of infrared sensors. They've got the night vision goggles, heat vision, and at times, they see movement, and it looks like, if it's down, all fours, then it's a bear, and they know it's a bear. But then when it goes from all fours to upright to standing on two legs for a prolonged period of time, and it's going quite quickly, can't really be a bear then, because when a bear, I mean, I don't know how fast a bear can walk or run on two legs, but it doesn't seem like it can be as mobile, and the strides that it takes, just think about when we're walking, we can take short ones, we can take long strides, but this was just a continuous one, and it was going at a pace, so it kind of rules out the bear thing. And I get it, because bears would be an easy kind of thing to say, but when it's a prolonged period of time, and climbing as well, it's not just on the floor, it's properly like climbing as well. It just kind of rules out bears. I mean, the show would explain it a lot better than I would, but certainly how fast and how it can destroy things as well. I mean, bears can't make the things that they see in these forests. It just needs, like thumbs.
I think. Sorry, I was going to say that I think what you said there is right, or earlier about, they can say that bears can walk upright, but it's a proportion of their limbs really wouldn't match what you see on the videos of the sightings. So it's far more, the sightings, the videos you see are far more human-like, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, like you said, the longer strides and the arms, whereas a bear would still have the same proportion arms and legs if it was upright.
That's it. And for you, when you look through because we can see as well through their cameras that the heat vision and the night vision, that it's not a bear, because like you say, the proportion of their body shapes isn't the same. It's more human-esque, with the limbs and things. So it kind of blows that out. I dare say, people who have thought they've seen Bigfoot rather, not Big Bear, Bigfoot, um, would have probably seen a bear. I'm not ruling that out, but there's
Yeah.
certainly accounts that it's definitely not a bear. It is something else, potentially Bigfoot.
Another theory is escaped apes. So some could be apes or chimpanzees or gorillas and orangutans that have escaped captivity from zoos or private owners. So again, whereas I think apes may have a bit more resemblance to what we see in terms of the arms, I would still think the height and again the movement isn't what we've seen from the videos, right?
No, I mean, it's different there is the height. The videos that have been released, the ones that we see in the shows and we read about, is that Bigfoot is much bigger than your chimpanzee and your ape. And to be fair, when you've said that, I've never really, in the shows, I've never mentioned that it could be chimpanzees or apes that escaped the zoos and whatever. It's never came up, and I've never said anything about that. So that's interesting that you mentioned that. But I think the size proportion alone just tells you that it cannot be an ape or a chimpanzee. And like you say, the arms is a big giveaway there, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it just can't be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no zoologist or whatever, yeah, they're called, but they'd probably have the width, but I'm not sure they'd have the height that. I mean, you were saying, 7, 8 foot potentially. I don't know if apes can get that big, but again, it's also the movement because, and again, it will come onto it on the next one, but the classic way we've seen it is the Bigfoot moves quite human-like, isn't it, in its strides and
Yeah,
and,
it
and, and
is.
movement. And sorry, and that brings us on to humans. So people say that humans have been mistaken for Bigfoot, with some instance leading to injury. So in 2013, a 21-year-old man in Oklahoma was arrested after he told the law he accidentally shot his friend in the back while their group was hunting for Bigfoot. In 2017, a shamanist wearing clothing made of animal furs was vacationing, and then locals flooded enforcement with Bigfoot sightings. And so much so that there was the Greenville Police Department issued a public notice not to shoot Bigfoot for fear of mistakenly injuring someone in a fursuit. I think this one I kind of can understand because we've said a few times already that Bigfoot is human-like. Although I guess if you say Bigfoot is a thing, the dimensions are going to be far different, right? What do you say about that? I guess I could say if you're looking for it and you were to spot maybe someone in a distance, in other words, your mind might jump to it being that, and maybe that's what then could make people say humans are more of a, I want to say scapegoat. That's not necessarily the word I want to use, but why people may be quicker to jump to it being a human.
There's no doubt about it, man, that there'll be pranksters out there. You know what I mean? I think there's that element of just wanting to have a bit of a laugh and things, and just try to not make it real. I just don't. We are saying there about shooting them. I don't understand why you would shoot if you've seen a potential Bigfoot. Why would you want to shoot it in the first place? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, personally, I get it, you might be frightened, but if it's from a distance, I don't know. If a Bigfoot is ever kind of found and will be one of the biggest scientific discoveries of all time, it's about evolution and all that. I would rather witness it than kill it, put it that way, unless you're feeling. But there's been no evidence at all that they have tried to kill a human. You know what I mean? In the show, if you watch it, there is ones they would throw rocks and things at you. They would make noises on trees to try and distract you to get you to turn around and things. There's not been any evidence at all that they would try and kill you, even how close they were in that show. I think for the human point of view, it'd be easy enough to dress up as a Bigfoot, and I dare say if people were hunting Bigfoot, you'd probably expect them to try and be clued up on the fact that, well, they would done their research and they know how tall a Bigfoot would be, or they know, I don't know, proportionally what they would look like. A human dressed up as a Bigfoot, I don't know, it just doesn't seem plausible. But I'm not saying for a minute that it's, people haven't been fooled by it. They probably have been, and they've taken that as a sighting and they've recorded it, because you can look up the number of recorded sightings of Bigfoot and things like that on the internet.
But going back to kind of the start of that, where we say why hunt it, I guess, can you imagine if you are the person that shot and caught it? I guess that's what they're after, right? It's that glory.
It's the trophy, isn't it? They want the
Yeah,
Bigfoot
it's the
trophy.
trophy. Sorry, yeah. The next thing here, I don't like it as an explanation, so I'm not even going to say it properly. But it's called pareidolia, and that's where you see human-like faces within an environment, and it says photos and videos of poor quality alleged to depict Bigfoots are often referred to as blob squatch. I don't like that as a thing, because again, you've referred to videos where it's clearly something rather than it's a panning camera and maybe you see an outline of something. I think this is, for a lot of either cryptids or conspiracies, this is an easy thing just to say, oh, you're seeing things, and we do, right? As humans, we love to spot faces in clouds or bread, even, random things. But this feels too cheap or lazy. Sorry, a thing to attribute it to it, right?
It is just lazy. I think we do know through previous footage and things what it looks like, and potentially the size of it and things, and to use that as an excuse or for a reason rather, it is just lazy, and I don't like it myself, man. To be honest with you, just when you say it, like there's one I want to mention. It's kind of not a kind of the outline of it, but it's a good, if you haven't seen it, man, I would go and try and YouTube it and try and look at it. Would be there's a skill trip happening. I don't remember where it is now, but you can see there's something on a mountain. Now it's not the best image, but you can definitely see that there's something moving on 2 feet, 2 legs, and they're moving up the mountain, and everybody's pointing at it. It's just that way. Have you ever seen the film Signs?
Yeah.
So did you see it's another sort of alien film, by the way? It's not talk about alien conspiracies.
Yeah.
See the bit where they see the alien in Brazil, I think it is, in Rio de Janeiro. I can't remember which city it's in. And all the kids are pointing at it like, look, there's an alien there, it's there. That's what it reminded me of. That everybody was just kind of pointing towards it. Now, the footage is quite far away, to be honest with you, and there's no, I wouldn't say for sure that it is, but there's just the dark silhouette of it, and it isn't a silhouette as such, it's just you can see it moving quite quickly up the hill, and then it just disappears. So again, it could have been a human, it could have been a man, I don't know, but it just didn't look like it. And I would try and catch that footage if you can, man, because it was, again, it's something else that just adds to the record of something's not quite right there, and it maybe make me believe it.
But if you go back through history, and I've spoken on this show about a number of things like the paranormal, things like that. There's enough people that claim to have seen something or believe in something that others haven't, or it's a very low number of people that claim to see it. But enough people have claimed to see something. So at what point do you, I guess what I'm saying at the start, you said something quite interesting, like you're a man of science, but science can explain certain things, but there's a lot of things that it hasn't explained up until it does, if you know what I mean. So throughout history, there have been these discoveries. So do we think we're at a point where we've discovered everything? Of course not. I guess we live in a day and age now where it's a case of people, they want to see it to believe it. And I guess that's what things like this have to contend with.
I think as human beings, we're naturally we are very curious about things, and I'm a science. I want to see proof. I want to see the DNA. I want to see the bone structure. I want to see all of that because it proves it's the proof of the pudding, right? But I think there's been enough proof, from the likes of footprints. There's been handprints as well now being released. You can see them, and it's just again how that itself isn't human. It's standing on the ground. It's actual massive footprint, and that's not just one footprint. If it was one, it would be a wee bit okay, it's a bit sketchy. But no, there's more than one, and it's all adding up to be something different. But we're just naturally curious. I think I want to see the science behind it, but also at the same time, I want to believe in these things because part of it's, I don't know, fun. I'm curious if it was to come out tomorrow and say that this exists, we found Bigfoot, I wouldn't be surprised about it because I've seen and I've read so much about it that you know what, it was there all along. Do you know what I mean? People choose to believe these things. People don't choose to believe these things. That is entirely up to you as a person. But again, there'll be things that they believe in and that I don't. So, like paranormal, for example, you mentioned that. I am unsure of the point that I believe in ghosts. I don't know, but I've seen enough proof out there that they could. People have given real life encounters. Who am I to say? And you see when they're talking to you as well about how kind of frightened they are and things. Who am I to tell them that they didn't go through that experience? People are allowed to believe what they want to believe, and until science tells us, otherwise, it's never going to disprove it. You know what I mean, it's always out there until we find it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but as you said, the thing is, it's one of those things where you almost can't prove it or disprove it, if you know what I mean. Because at the moment, I don't know, how do you prove or disprove something that is paranormal like that? But as you said, there are people clearly that have believed they've seen something, and you hear some stories, and even I'm like, well, I don't know how I'd explain that. What I was thinking while you were saying some of that as well is that I guess the thing with things like this, like Bigfoot, is when I were a lad, it was literally less of a camera state, and sort of you didn't have mobiles then. And I think as a kid, you could imagine it and believe it more. I guess another thing people might say is that, well, we're in a 24/7, constantly connected. Everything is online, or cameras everywhere. But I guess you don't have cameras in the deep of the forest, right, or the woods. So yeah, I mean, what would you say around that kind of element, that we've never been more of an on-screen society, as it were?
Well, I'm not as young as you probably think, Dan. To be honest with you, I'm like 40 now, man. So this is so I went through. I didn't have mobiles. I get it, man. Do you know what I mean? It's just like there's no technology out in the forests. Do you know what I mean? And these guys these teams of people will come out and they'll spend fortunes on different technologies to get around it. And I think, like for example, motion sensors. They've got trail cams and all sorts of things like that, and they still can't get it. And there's the theory as well that Bigfoot can interfere with technology. Have you heard of Faraday bags?
Oh yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I teach it in cybersecurity, and it's about it's electronic communication, and basically they have a big EMF tent in the forests where Bigfoot can't detect digital signals and radio signals and things like that. And this is really interesting. So you set up the big EMF tent, all the technology was inside it. All of a sudden you seen something running past, and then he came out the tent and there was nothing there. But something was there. We seen it as a viewer. I seen it as well, and it just ran right past, and then another one ran right past. Now we don't know if it was something else, but usually an animal would, you would see an animal in the distance, or it would maybe stop and turn around. If it was a bear, it would probably interact and try. Do you know what I mean? It just seems very, very peculiar that all these technologies are being used, and then it's been hidden, so it doesn't transmit all the signals, and that happens. So the technologies don't exist out there, and I don't know if I answered your question, mate. I'm sorry.
No,
But
well, no. It's interesting just having this conversation like this, because this is the way my brain works as well. Is I'll be saying one thing and I'll go off somewhere else. Because what I was going to say to answer, I'm here, like I said, I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I love looking at both sides of the conversation. But to counter what I said, so this is where I end up arguing with myself, is that ultimately, I'll go back to what I said earlier in that let's not underestimate how vast, both in width and height, these forests are. So, what do? Do you have to put a sensor every 2-3 meters? What would you do? How would you cover an area like that to capture it?
Well, that's it. So they don't cover the entire area. That's the problem. They've got like target zones that they enter because it is so vast. They can't cover it all. And there's only three of them at the same time. And again, for a safety point of view, you can't really go too far away from one another. Do you know what I mean? So there is a target zone that they have to go and investigate. But it's interesting because I think it was in California, in fact, that one of the target zones they wanted to go and enter became a government. The government kind of took it, preservation or something like that. So they had evidence that there was something going into that territory, and then as they asked for permission to enter that territory, the government denied it. It was that aspect of the fact that it's a kind of cover up from the government that they know Bigfoot exists and they're not letting people in and out of the area, which is another wee thing that I forgot to mention.
What about cover up?
I'm not saying it's a cover up. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that they asked for permission to get into the one of the target zones, and they were denied it. But they had, evidence that that something was moving within it, or moving in and moving out of it.
Yeah.
They could wait on Bigfoot coming out of it, but they couldn't go in to chase it and to find it because, again, it was against the law. They weren't allowed in.
I guess what I'm getting at with my point as well about going back to the size of the environment it would be in is, here again in the UK, when I say here, we've had a history of these big cat sightings out in the wild, right? And again, we're a tiny little island, right? And we spot these and people can't see them, but people are adamant they're there. And again, I've covered it, and there are so many pictures and there are so many testimonies. And we're on a tiny, tiny fraction. Isn't the thing that you could probably fit us 50 times in the state of Texas alone, right? So again, I think this is what I'm trying to get across is that, even if it's not Bigfoot, who knows what else wildlife could be lurking in something as big as that, right?
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned the cat sightings because there was a cat sighting in Scotland just a couple of weeks ago. I think it was a lynx roaming about the place up north. Yeah, so just you mentioned that, but no, we there's loads of wildlife and animals and dangerous species out there. We just don't know. And think about it as well. Like if I was going to hunt Bigfoot tomorrow, you're not just hunting for Bigfoot. You're trying to stay alive from all the wildlife that could be possibly out there. And again, we don't know exactly what we might come across. That's why the primatologist is with them as well, because that primatologist found a new species. I think it was ape or something like that in Africa or something not too long ago as well. So she's been brought along for purposes like that as well, just to kind of what else can we find as well as possibly finding Bigfoot.
I do also think, because I'm looking at the screen here, and we mentioned it earlier on. There's tourism and events. There's museums. There's festivals. Do we think that this also doesn't help in maybe belittling it in the minds of people because it becomes more like it's a festival and people celebrating it rather than taking it seriously, or it diminishes it? I think, does it diminish the efforts that people like in this show are doing, do you think?
It diminishes it. I think it's taken as more of a joke at some, not a joke as such. I don't mean it like that, but I think it's. You do get the kind of the festivities, the celebration, but I think at the same time, this is people's lives as well. Like people live for hunting these things, and I think using like the kind of like I said, to get the festivals of it all, and I think in some way, shape and form that it does a wee bit take a kind of a gloss away from the importance of what could be. I don't know, man. It's interesting, but I think it does a wee bit diminish the fact that the discovery of Bigfoot is something it's real and it's still ongoing to this very day.
Again, I'll go back to the fact that I said that, from what I found, the earliest sighting was 1811. So the fact that 214 years later, it's still a conversation piece and there are still sightings, there's got to be something in it there. Are people then saying that there has either been a bear been spotted for 200 years, in the same city. I think it's a fascinating thing. It's something I've not, I guess, not really thought about until you kind of mentioned it.
Native Americans have been interviewed umpteen times about the sightings, and again, they just never budge at all from from it. The Native Americans. It's like a thing that's passed through generations with these guys. Like it's like almost like a god or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like um the masks and all that, and it's like
Mm.
this is something that's been carried through generations. So the Native Americans who spotted it, like they've never moved from it, and it's like a story that's passed to, like I say, generations of, it's real. It's real because this is what your great grandfather. This is what he's seen. This is what your great great grandfather seen, and you just
Yeah.
take that word, as gospel. And I mean, you might have heard, like, I mean, my mum and dad have taught me things, and I thought that's true. Maybe it has grew arm and legs through time, and it's became such a story that's embedded in their livelihoods and in their beings, that it is true. So I don't know.
And sorry, just going back to the show, you said you watched this. You said it's 6 seasons. So have they had sightings? Is there anything credible there? Because another thing I'm thinking of is, was it a thing, but it's died out? Is it that rare, or was there that few numbers that is potentially died out? Are they still? I know you said they're still seeing proof, aren't they? The hair in the trees, didn't you?
Yes, the hair in the trees. They've recently there in one of the last episodes was that there was a handprint on one of the windows. So basically, there's three of them that go out into the forest area. There's one guy that hangs back, and when he gets any like DNA, he sends it to different labs. He also talks to different people about their stories and kind of encounters. So he's got a kind of a different aspect from the people who live there. So when he go to different states, he interviews different people, and where he is situated, he calls it a kind of command center. And on the window there was a giant handprint on it, and you can see it. Like, he's like, it made a noise and stuff as well. It's like, what was going on? And he's trying to look around to see if there's anything there. Nothing was there. Didn't see anything. But he put his hand against he obviously took the DNA from it. And he did the swabs and stuff like that, and he put his hand against the glass in comparison to the actual hand on the print, and it was so like big. He says, I've never seen the guy in real life, obviously, but he said he's over 6 foot, and to see his hand compared against it was something else, man. You know what I mean? This is like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is like massive.
It's been fascinating talking to you about this, so because I wanted to talk about a couple of other things, but I don't think I will now because no, it's been really interesting talking to you about this. Is there anything you kind of want to bring up that we haven't really touched on?
Oh, nah, I think there's a lot more kind of size to the Bigfoot as well. There's like, I wouldn't go into it, but there's the aspect of, Bigfoot living in another dimension and being able to kind of mess with people's heads and all things like that. Again, that's another kind of aspect of it, kind of linked with UFOs and things like that. But it's, again, that's just a theory. Whenever there's been a Bigfoot sighting, there's been a strange kind of orb in the sky as well, which is witnessed in one of the shows as well. But again, there's different aspects to how Bigfoot is, and being a kind of dimensional being is one of them. I'm not saying I believe in that as such, but I'm just kind of, it's interesting that there's different kind of folklore out there about Bigfoot.
It's the world around this thing, right? Exactly, and that's what I think I've been trying to do, is just try to find, sort of the fors and against that I've been seeing on the internet about it. That's the thing. Like you said, once you start delving into something like this, then you've opened the box, right?
I mean, I was interested in Bigfoot a long time ago when I was growing up, as I said at the start, and when I discovered this show, I thought, oh man, I need to go back and watch this, and it just kind of recaptured my imagination a wee bit, and like my belief in what I think and what I read back, the stories back when I was younger, and you know what, even though there was a massive gap in between before when I read them when I was younger till I watched them, fairly recently. It's not as if I didn't believe. I just didn't read them up. When I watched it all again and read it all again, it's like that's not went away. I still believe in it. You know what I mean? So, aye, it has been good talking to you, man. I wasn't on to try and convince you that that he or she, Bigfoot does exist. But it's just kind of good to speak about it, man. You know what I mean? And I do apologise for taking up the time for the other two.
No, that's fine because I can get another episode out of that now.
That's fair enough. That's good.
Yeah, where did you say that was on Netflix? That show?
No, it's on Discovery.
Oh, Discovery. No, like I said, it's been great to talk to you about this because, as I said, it's something I remember seeing a lot of when I grew up, when I was growing up. Sorry, but yeah, just haven't really seen that much about it. So to know there's a show that's out there investigating it, and for me, all I want, I really hope I want you to be able to get out there and do one of these things, and maybe if we could get someone from the show listening, yeah,
That'd be good. Seismic Cinema goes live. Bigfoot capturing in America. That'd be good.
Well, Scotland as well. You've got the kind of the mountains and the lochs there as well, which have had their own history as well, right? So.
That's true. Look, you mentioned Loch Ness Monster earlier on. I'm not a believer in that. I've seen I think there's been a couple of still photographs of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer of that. But we do have our own kind of mystery in Scotland.
But again, yeah, the only reason I bring that up, before we finish is, again, you look at the terrain, you look at the environment, and again, it's in an area where it's quite not sparse isn't the word, or less inhabited, and it's difficult terrain, and these are where these things all seem to stem from, and there's probably a reason, right? So
that's it. There's definitely a lot of remote parts in Scotland that things could be wandering and existing. You know what I mean? Like it is in America, definitely.
Well, James, thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
No. I just want to say thanks very much for having me on, mate. I do appreciate you.
No, anytime.
And I do apologise if it was more of a rant than anything else. I was
just no, it wasn't a rant. It's a great conversation.
So it was I.
No, it's one of those ones. Like I said, I apologise if I'm asking one question, then start asking one question, then end up asking another one because that's the way the brain works. Do you just want to give your pod a shout out and your co-host a shout out before we finish?
I will do, thank you. So I'm James from Seismic Cinema. We are a movie TV podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much we're on social media. If you could give us a wee kind of like and subscribe, it'd be good. Again, we just do, film and TV, mostly film podcast these days. Our most recent episode was Anchorman. You can check us out, man, on YouTube. But it's myself, I'm James. I've probably written an essay on it. Paul's watched it in the wrong order, and Colin, who is a film podcaster, has probably never seen it. So it's a learning journey for him. It's a movie journey for him, and we're taking him through that.
I think that's great as well. It's a great mix because then if you've seen a film so many times, of course you're going to be a fan of it. It's got to be great to see it through the eyes of someone who's never seen it before, right? Absolutely.
And sometimes Colin, he's not a big action fan. He doesn't like action films as much, but he's definitely got a lot to learn still. But it's good to see his opinion as a first-time viewer, because sometimes I know you do your Mind Wipe series, which is good as well, but just to see a film again through the eyes of, for the first time. I've got loads of films and TV shows I would love to put in there, do you know what I mean? And I'm jealous of people watching it for the first time, but I'm jealous of him in some cases I am.
I'm going to put the links to your show in the show notes, and just remember me for Cobra Kai.
Of course, mate, absolutely. I'll write it down.
Firstly, thank you again very much for spending your time here. You're listening to me, so you know where to find a podcast. But if you want to get in touch, if you fancy, because I think now I'm going to have this as an irregular sub-series of cryptids and conspiracies, if you fancy coming on for that, or if you want to be on my Mind Wipe or dinner party, or got a suggestion for an episode, or just want to say hello, just look for Casting Views across all social media. And with that, I'll say goodbye. So again, thank you, James, and I'll see you next week for another episode of Casting Views.
1, 2, 3, 4. If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Come on, check what we've got, 'cause